summary. There are several online, fortunately, but you have like kind of like a compendium or a glossary of local words.
Ah,
You
nice,
have
nice.
that? That's usually mostly in Latin America. If you go to Spain, well, depends. Yeah, it's just, I think the Spanish speaking community is really diverse when it comes to lexicon. So that's
Yeah.
usually the main challenge. Well,
Well, what languages are you learning, Joy?
well, I'm currently learning Japanese and French
Hmm.
with varying degrees of success.
Ah,
But I also have to say that Japanese is somewhat similar to Chinese in terms of the grammar. It's really easy. So
I
that's
know.
kind of like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
know a
go
lady
ahead.
that teaches Japanese. If you're looking for a class or an instructor.
Oh, thanks. And I mean, I kind of have like the tools at hand. It's just a
Mm.
bit difficult because most of my Japanese, I work with Japanese people, and one of my colleagues is really nice. He speaks slowly. He knows that I'm not proficient, but the other one, he just doesn't care. He's
Yeah.
like he speaks like what I he speaks like a squirrel on crack that fast. So yeah, I'm usually having trouble with that. Oh, okay.
Uh,
Geo says like I'll have well, I'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. So Geo, is that a green light? Should I start?
Well, I
Well,
see
he says
that it
yes.
is recording already. It says rec.
Good. Yeah, let's begin. All right. I don't usually like presentations, but I prepared a little one just so we can establish some written differences. Let me just share my screen. Let's see. There we go. So please let me know if you can see it.
I can see it.
Good. I suppose that's a yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, under advice from Geo, I usually try to focus my participations towards Spanish speaking people. But since we have an international audience as well, I'm going to try to adapt. In the case of David, the vice versa interpretation will do wonders, if anything. So, uh, we said phonetics, the next step of not sucking in English. That's kind of like the funny title, but it's mostly for people who want to go a step beyond what English learning is about. How does it work? Well, it's usually flapping, flapping in your throat, flapping in your mouth. That flapping comes courtesy of your tongue or your lips. But mostly it's about transforming the wind, the air that goes from up and down your throat through the magic of your vocal cords. Sorry. But what's important about phonetics? Not really a lot. Most of you are ESL learners, meaning you are learning English as a second language, and your priority is always clear communication. Everything else comes after that. Everything else is optional. But as long as you can make yourself understood, then everything's peachy. Um, I tell you this because some people try to have perfect English really early on, and it's not necessary. It usually comes as a consequence of you interacting with other English speaking people or living in another country or focusing on whatever objective you have as an English learner, be it your work, your academic progress, and so on and so forth. So the thing about English is, as with any other language with a really, really wide area of coverage, you will have several dialects. And many dialects mean many different pronunciations. So, bottom line, you are allowed to sound however you usually sound as long as you are being understood. And that means that most of the time people will understand you due to context. So, it's not really a big deal. There are some times, however, that phonetics are necessary. Otherwise, you will say something that will be slightly disruptive to the flow of the conversation. Examples. One of my favorites in Spanish, for instance, is that people, when they are learning English as Spanish speakers, they want to say focus, but they end up saying focus, which completely demolishes everything the conversation was about. And also, they feel a bit self conscious when they do or when they make those kinds of mistakes. Another one, and this is really, really frequent, I have yet to meet one student who is not having trouble with this. Here in Colombia, we're not used to the SK phonetic combination. So they end up saying ax instead of ask. So when they tell you, "Can I ask you? Can I ask you something?" Yeah, usually people don't understand sometimes, or it just sounds funny. So most of the times when phonetics are necessary are those times when you want to be precise, and thankfully, most of those times are related to consonant combination. So in terms of Spanish and English phonetics, we have this little comparison chart. In terms of phonetics, you always have to worry about two things, vowels and consonants. As I was telling David before, Spanish is a nightmare to learn, but the phonetics are the least of those problems because Spanish, in terms of phonetics, they try to, in terms of vowels, they are as open as possible. They don't configure, they don't transform, uh, they don't soften the impact of vowels, the whole mouth system. So it's usually just kind of like screaming the sounds with the vowels. Whereas in English you have the exact opposite. English grammar is way easier than Spanish. It's really easy. You don't have as many conjugations. You don't have as many, I would say, irregular cases as in Spanish. You don't have as many situations in which you must depend on memory. But yeah, unfortunately, English is a consequence of what I call an orgy between Nordic, continental German, and Roman inspired or derived languages. Mostly because some of you know about, well, English history, the many different conflicts with France, the French kings of England, etc. So yeah, English is kind of like a hot pot, just like the US. So in terms of that, the vowels in English are not as demanding, tonally speaking, as, for instance, as David was saying, Chinese or French, but they are not as open as some other uh, Roman derived languages, such as Portuguese, Spanish, or Italian. And the consonants, that's the other problem. In Spanish, you have something really nice with consonants, and let me show you this one. And you see the diagram. This diagram, you can see that in terms of consonants. In Spanish, you have that each consonant is a slight transition, or it's a soft transition from the consonant before. So you go from red to orange or red to yellow. But in English, it's just a nightmare. because you're constantly jumping around that spectrum. So I would like for us to do some participation exercises. I don't know if you have any words right now that you're having trouble with, words that you are not familiar with, pronunciation that results challenging for you, either in Spanish or in English, of course, since we have both English and Spanish learners. I would say, for instance, Riemann, when you say Asia,
Asia.
yeah, you say it wonderfully in Spanish, but when you say it in English, uh, you are saying a slightly different phoneme. I mean, you're using the same phoneme, which is
Yeah.
the one from
Asia.
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 But it's all right. I mean, as I told you guys
Asia.
before, it's about being understood instead of being like. How about you, David? Have you been having issues with any Spanish phoneme?
I used to have a problem with the word veterinario, veterinarian.
Veterinarian.
Yeah, that it took me a long time breaking that down syllable by syllable to actually try to get it right, but it's still kind of hard for English speakers, I think.
Oh, well, apparently Lewis has the same issue, but in English.
Another word would be like jewelry.
Oh, right. Try to drop the E you are placing after the L. Just jewelry.
Jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Originally, you were saying like jewelry. Just
Yeah,
drop that
jewelry.
E. Drop it.
Jewelry.
Like LR. Perfect. See that?
Yes.
Futile. Okay. There's one. People, actually, I have two tricks for you, Spanish speakers, if you want to sound way better in English. First of all, the SK combination. We don't have that in Spanish alone. So we end up saying X, which is KS. So it's kind of like the reverse. The trick is there's a Spanish word, we call it asco. Are you familiar with that word? Asco? Disgust?
Yep.
All right, so try to say that word without the O. And that's the phoneme you need to practice about every time. For example, when you say, can I ask you a question? That's what you want to say, but most people end up saying ax. They kind of go the other way around. That's one, trying to separate the consonants, because as you can see, if I were to go this way, the K goes here and the S is way up front. So it's kind of a mix up sometimes. So try to separate them. Say ask. Same with any other weird combination you have. That's usually the trick you want to go with. Another one is the formation of past tenses with regular verbs. When the verb ends in a consonant or the second to last letter is a consonant. For instance, we have verbs like, let's see, one I am top of my head, but not right. Another one. Wait, for instance, the verb wait. It's better for you to say waited or waited, but always pronounce those two last letters. What other? Oh, right. There's another combination people are usually having trouble with, and it's for the plural of words that end in st, or a verb that ends in st that you need to conjugate for the third person of the singular. For instance, the verb cast. Exactly. tests. So how about we try it out? Rimon, could you say tests, please?
Tests.
Yeah, you don't have any issues with that. But as you can see, as Rimon did, the trick behind that kind of situation is for you to separate the sound, not the ST, but first the S and then the TS. So you kind of end up saying tests, which would sound a bit weird for us Spanish speakers, but actually sounds delightful in English. Oh, texts would be the slightly more difficult variation of that, because you kind of have to separate both cases. Tech, desks as well. Well, I think that one is slightly easier because you kind of have the S and the X afterwards. It's not a written X, but it's a phoneme X, like KS. How about you, Lewis?
Okay.
Could you please say task?
Task.
Very good. How about priest?
Priest.
Great. How about the plural of priest?
Oh. Priests.
Yeah, good. I mean, you kind of went a bit overboard with the last, but that's usually how it is. How about Diego? You hear me, man? Well, apparently not. How about Javier?
Yes.
Could you please tell me the past of help?
Helped.
Good. See what he did? That's another trouble some people have. You have a verb that ends in a hard consonant, and then you have to pronounce the past. But whereas in other words, when you have a T, usually say like the TED, for instance, wait, waited, or waited. But in the case of help, you don't say helped, you say helped, which is usually, again, difficult because you have to go from the front to the teeth really fast. So remember, PT, kind of like in Spanish with the verb optar. So helped. How about we have another one?
Okay, but I have a question there. So what is the correct, the right way of the verb? Waited or waited? I waited or I waited?
Both are correct.
Okay.
Because as I was telling you guys some time before, waited and waited are just dialectic differences. Both are correct, but both are pronunciations from different dialects. When you have, for instance, let's say some uh, dialects within the United Kingdom would say waited. But for instance, in some parts of America, as David can confirm, it would be waited.
Okay. Thank you.
Any words you guys are having trouble with that I might help you phonetically today? Could be in Spanish or in English. I would say, David, can you roll your R's? Oh, wait. Grateful wants to ask a question, apparently. Go ahead.
Yes. Let me write in the chat the word.
Oh, okay. Let's see that word.
I can write. Maybe you understand me.
I do.
I have a lot of words that I cannot pronounce well, like acquaintance. Acquaintance.
Go ahead.
Uh,
Let us hear you.
I didn't listen you.
Oh, acquaintance.
Acquaintance.
Quaint. Kind of like,
Uh,
do you know the word quaint? It's just right there in the middle. Quaint.
Okay. Acquaintance.
Close enough. Just say quaint.
Quaint. Quaint.
Like EI.
Acquaintance.
Quaint.
Okay. Quaint.
Very good. Acquaintance.
Acquaintance. Acquaintance.
Perfect.
Better.
Close enough. Remember that the middle part is like EI. You know how to say the verb play, right?
Yeah. Play.
So it's the same sound. When you say play, you also say acquaint.
Acquaint.
Very good. That's it. It's understandable
you.
because acquaintance is kind of it's kind of an advanced word.
Yeah.
How about, all right, David, sorry, the R's. How are you feeling with the R's?
Good, I guess. Perro. Yeah. I'm able to roll the R's pretty well.
Oh, good. Yeah, because that's usually one of the challenging parts. How about in Spanish? Oh, by the way, since you're learning Spanish for a mostly Latin American context, there are a couple of phonetic phenomena from Spain that you won't need to worry about. First of all, in Latin America, you won't see any differentiation between B and V. That's really important in English, though, people. It's not the same saying biking as saying Viking. For instance, it's really. Oh, Louis, you have. Yeah, but Louis, are you from Spain or are you traveling to Spain anytime soon?
From Bogota.
Good. Are you going to Spain? Are you planning on traveling?
No, but when I speak English, they don't understand when I pronounce words with V, and they don't understand anything.
Oh, right. Well, it's usually because here in Latin America we dropped that. If you go to Spain, people are going to say actually B and V. And the trick behind that is which parts of your mouth are you using? When you're going to say B, that's called the bilabial because you are using both of your lips. Try to do this. B.
B.
Very good. That's phoneme. So when you say beber, that's what you are saying indeed. Now, the other one is called labiodental because you're using your teeth and your lower lip, sorry. So it's like this. Kind of like what you would do with the F, but instead of blowing, you're just softly using it. For instance, vale, or for instance, in English, visage or beverage. Beverage is kind of like a good one because you have both. You have B and you have V. Beverage. That's one you can use to practice.
Oh my goodness. Beverage.
Or behavior is also one you can use to practice. You have behavior.
Behavior.
When you practice those, you will get more loose with your mouth in terms of the B and the V. Sorry, grateful. Yeah, you were saying?
Am I saying verb with the right? Verb.
Oh, the TH.
Verbo. Verbo.
Oh,
I
right,
can.
yeah. In Spanish, you could practice with that word. You would say verbo.
In English.
In English, it would be verb.
Verb.
Mm-hmm.
I can. Okay.
So it's usually in Latin America, we usually don't use the V. We have, well, it depends on the case, right? But sometimes we overuse the B, or sometimes we overuse V. That's one of the things, not only in English, if you're learning any other language, French, German, several European ones actually, you must differentiate between the B and the B. For instance, if you have in German, we have Bein and you have Wein. If you say one of those wrong, you could be asking for a leg, at a restaurant instead of a cup of wine. Exactly, just like who was that? Just like Victor said, yeah, Wein is wine and Bein is leg. So in other languages, in English, in German and French as well, you really have to work on your B's and your B's. Now, another challenging phoneme in English would be the S, depending on where it is. For instance, when you have like a middle S, you don't say me, you say measure. For instance, that verb is usually challenging for some. It's kind of like pronouncing it like a Spanish Y, like payaso.
You're talking about measure.
That's a different one. Close enough, because when you say measure and you say nature, it's different. As Luis said, there's a big difference between the SH phoneme and the CH phoneme. One of those is stronger than the other. For the one with the S, how do you explain that? If I could show you here, would be better, but you don't know the IPA, right? I haven't told you guys about the IPA, I think.
Yes, please pronounce them.
Right.
I know, but I can pronounce it well. You know, the TH sound like Z, the TH sound.
Oh, the TH. Well, we have two TH phonemes in English. One would be the silent one, and the other one would be the voiced one. That's something you need not concern yourselves right now with, which is the difference between silent and voiced phonemes. But the difference between 1 and 2 is one sounds a bit more like a D, exactly like Victor said, and the other one sounds like the veritable TH sound, which is take your tongue, place it between your teeth, and blow like this. Could you do that for us, Grateful? Remember, tongue between your teeth and just blow. No sound, just blow.
Okay.
Very good.
Like C?
Close, but it's not a sibilant. You're not vibrating as much. For instance, when you say that sound, it's a sibilant because you're making the vibrate between your teeth. With the TH, you're just blocking the way of the air because you're blocking the way with your tongue. You have your tongue between your teeth like this. So when you blow, the air can't pass, and that's what makes the sound. For instance, when do you have TH silent and a TH voiced? For instance, the TH silent when you say thigh. See this? Thigh. Thigh, which is the upper part of your leg. But then you have other ones like they. It's not exactly a D, but it sounds closer to it. It's not really that important because if you were to Ireland, most people, well, not most, but some dialects in Ireland, they don't pronounce that voiced TH, they just say the T and are done with it. So they say day, for instance, like, the day and night.
Day.
But remember that you have the trick behind that sound is the tongue between your teeth.
Sí.
Exactly.
I can even say my daughter's name, Catherine. Catherine.
Very good, Catherine. Very good, Catherine.
Sound good?
Sounds
Catherine.
beautiful.
Okay,
Exactly.
because
That's how you do it.
always I say Catherine, Catherine, but I had to say Catherine.
But exactly, and you can now because you had. That's one of the parts of the presentation. I think I didn't mention when you know how your mouth and throat works. When you know how that works better, you have less of a hard time learning new phonemes. So, for instance, what's the difference between the th and the d? When you say d,
D,
your tongue is
you,
not coming out.
D,
Your tongue is clashing against your teeth, but it's not between them. So you say like
D,
T.
D.
But
Okay.
when you say th, you're blowing.
The same with the S sound is the Z.
Precisely. Yes.
We have
The
to
S. Well,
bite it.
actually, that's funny. The difference between the S and the Z is the difference between voiced and silent phonemes.
Yeah.
How do you know when a phoneme is voiced? Place your hand in your throat, on your throat, and do the sound. If it vibrates, it's a voiced one. If it doesn't, it's a silent. For example, when you say the T one, just the T, which would be t, 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 your throat does not vibrate. T, t, it's a silent phoneme. But if you say the D,
D.
it vibrates. Just
We
say
use the throat.
it's a voiced one. So same thing with the S and the Z. The S would be the phoneme. Place your hand on your throat and say it does not vibrate. But when you say the Z, it does vibrate. That's the difference. But see, it's not even a different position, but it is what your throat is doing. You are using air to produce that sound in a way that vibrates your vocal cords. That's what makes it voiced. Another example, the T and the D. I know that we did that one already. The B and the P, same position, but different nature. For instance, when you say that's the P sound, it does not vibrate. It's just see. But when you say B, you're vibrating your throat. When you learn to combine all of those phenomena together, then you get much better at doing the different sounds you require. For instance, one of the sounds that people don't know how to differentiate in Spanish would be what we call vibrante simple and vibrante múltiple, which is what I was asking David a while ago, which is rolling your R's. Vibrante simple, so simple vibrant would be the normal R, the ere. It's just a slight vibration here in the upper part of the front palate. You're just saying, for instance, rabbit, or for instance, the R is not, the R is not voiced. It's usually silent because it just happens here up front. You say, for instance, rabbit, or you say ribbon, or you say rolling, which is funny because that R in English is a combination of, in Spanish, ere and el, the L. When you do that, that's the trick behind the R in English. Try to combine the L and the ere. Because in Spanish, you have a cleaner sound of that R. You're not using your tongue laterally, which would be the L. When you combine that ere and L, you have the English R's. You say ribbon, you say rolling, you say rover, you say
Rabbit, red,
sorry?
rabbit. Can I say right rabbit, red?
Try to do this.
Uh-huh.
I don't, it's not, you can't really see, but my tongue is way down and to the sides. So I'm saying like, What you are doing is vibrating it a lot. Okay, Luis. Oh, I'm gonna help you with that. It's enough. So in Spanish you have ere,
R,
you have erre.
R,
The second one is the multiple vibrant, which
R.
would be the one that people in English-speaking countries rather, well, not all of them, because if you go to Scotland, they really have a handle on the multiple vibrant. But that's usually one people are having a trouble about because the multiple vibrant is a very violent sound. Like
Okay. You know, and people who can speak already well in English, if they use breaks, the sound, the pronunciation is different. Like in Spanish, they speak different
Mhm.
with breaks.
Yeah,
You
and
can
actually,
notice. You can notice the difference when they use break.
yeah, you can. And usually, for instance, when an English speaker uses a word in Spanish with an R, with a simple vibrant, it's going to sound different because they are pronouncing it like they do in English, which is a combination between that simple vibrant and the lateral one, which is the L.
Yeah.
For instance, have you heard this before, like aeropuerto?
Yeah.
That's
And
usually how it would sound for a relatively
arrow,
new
arrow,
Spanish speaker, which come from which comes from, for instance, America. Now, Lewis, you were asking me about long vowels, right?
Yes, yes.
There's a trick to that. First of all, it depends on the context of the sentence. Usually, duration is not something you control as easily because you are talking at a certain pace. What you want to make of your word is to contrast it with the pace you are talking with. For instance, mm, if I'm going to say sheep, there's a slight change in the rhythm, in the cadence of my speech, so you know it's a long one. There is a slight phonetic difference, but if you don't know how to accentuate that phonetic difference, the trick is to change the pace in which you are talking. So let's get back to that example. You have two words that could sound similar. You have these two. I'm going to write them in chat. You have chip and sheep, right? So if you saw that, ship is slightly closed sound, whereas in sheep, it's much more similar to the ones we use in Spanish. That's the difference, phonetically speaking, between long vowels and short vowels. It's more about openness. When I say ship, I'm not doing what we do in Spanish when we say the letter I. We say E. We are being much more open
E.
in the way we pronounce the letter. Whereas the other one, the short one, it's not the whole E, but it. Hmm? That's kind of the trick in languages when you are learning phonetics for the vowels. In Spanish, we have the most open version of vowels. We have a, we have e, we have e, we have o, we have u. Those are the strongest phonetically speaking because those maximize sound. That's why some people believe we Spanish speakers speak very loudly. We could be speaking at a normal volume, but since we are pronouncing vowels in a way in which the mouth maximizes the sound, it sounds a bit louder than it would for an English speaker. So the trick for vowels in other languages is you have to change the way you are moving your mouth. The sound is the same. Let me give you an example. When you are learning German, for instance, or French, there are some vowels that are a combination. How are those combinations of vowels? It's mostly because you make the sound of a vowel, but your mouth is placed like another vowel. Mm? In English, you kind of want to do that. Minimize the shape of your mouth, but make the same sound. So we have E for sheep, and we have E for ship. Same sound, different shape of the mouth. I closed my mouth a bit more. That would be phonetically. The trick without phonetics is just when you are speaking, go at a certain rhythm, and when you get to the long vowel, expand a bit that rhythm. So I could be talking about several other things, but then I mentioned sheep for a bit, and you saw that there was a change in cadence there because I'm emphasizing that long vowel. How about we try it with you, Louis? Could you give me an example? Could you speak and use, for instance, try to tell me about feats of strength. Do you know what those are?
No, not really.
Feats of strength are events in which someone excelled or surpassed any known records or any common, I would say, performance in a certain task. For instance, let's suppose David just bench pressed a ton, whereas the maximum for someone of his build would be, I don't know, 250 pounds. That would be a feat of strength.
Okay.
All right, so how about you use feat, F-E-A-T,